Heading towards the weekend, Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Luke Johnson good enough to give us his time on Thursdays. He covers the New Orleans Saints for the Advocate. Joined us on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Luke, how are you?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
It is our pleasure. How was your Mardi Gras, Luke? It appeared you were having quite the time.
Thank goodness that Instagram account is private. I was having a great time, man. It was really good. All jokes aside, I mean, like it was cool doing it with my daughter, who's going to be turning 2 in May. This is like her first time, like really getting what Mardi Gras was about. So that was a lot of fun. And then I had one solid day to myself where I didn't have to worry about being a dad.
I like to hear that as well. Glad y'all enjoyed your time. All right, Combine is in the rearview mirror. Coaching staff essentially kind of put to bed here. So where does your focus with the New Orleans Saints turn to at this point in the calendar?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, it's how they're going to get under the cap, and not only just being compliant. Like they're going to be making a lot of moves, I think, because they want to be more active in free agency than they were last year. They only signed one guy last year to more than a 1-year contract, and it was Cedric Wilson. It's not like exactly something that's going to break the bank. I would expect them to be a little bit more aggressive this year, which means not only are they going to have to clear the $40 million to be compliant, they're going to have to clear more than that to be able to sign players. So I mean, we should have a pretty good idea in the next 36 to 48 hours as to like who they're going to whose contracts are going to touch. I think there's probably only like 8 or 9 guys in the roster who they can really truly restructure to create space. I would expect most, if not all of them, to get done. And maybe some guys taking pay cuts as well. There's just going to be a lot of moving parts in the next couple of days.
They're always going to get under the cap. They do it every single year at this time. But generally speaking, when they were doing that over the last, before 3 years ago, you thought they were trying to build toward a contender. And I think most people from the outside feel like that's not necessarily the case right now. So when a Saints fan hears that they're going to spend some money and gets a little bit nervous that may continue the issues with the salary cap moving forward, what would you say to that Saints fan?
I mean, I would say those are valid concerns. I think a lot of people are just like, why don't they just hit start on the rebuild and eat their medicine and just kind of deal with a rough year or two. But I think, I don't know. I think there's always a sense when you're around a bunch of competitive people that you're just like a couple of good moves away. You're a really good draft class away from being relevant again. I don't know if I agree with that, but I think that's kind of where they're at right now. So I don't really know how to answer that, because I think if it were me, I'd be doing this a little bit differently. But unfortunately, they're making a lot more money than I am to make these decisions. So that's kind of the path they're going to take. And who knows? I mean, like we've seen teams be in this kind of like non-competitive, middle ground, irrelevant place, hit on a draft class and be, a contending team within a year or two. Like it can be done, but they've got a pretty like limited needle to thread here.
Obviously, they cut Jamal Williams. That doesn't save him a ton of money, but it does save him just a smidge. Is there anybody else that you would look at that they may terminate a contract here or there to save cash?
I don't think they have like a lot of really appealing options for that. It's just because of the way they've managed the cap in recent years. It makes it hard to just cut somebody and recoup some cap savings. The only guys you really look at are guys like Colin Saunders or Cedric Wilson, and those are moves that are going to save you like maybe $2-3 million. The biggest chips they have are the restructures. They can clear up $31 million by restructuring Derek Carr. They're going to have a $70 million Carr issue next year on the salary cap. But I think that's something they're going to live with if they want to be not only compliant but in a position to add. So there's not really a lot of like then cut this guy and recoup some savings. It's just not what they have on this team right now. But I do expect like a lot of restructures, maybe some pay cuts, and see where they go from there.
Is there a position or two that you feel like they'll be more aggressive than others in free agency, or is it just kind of if they find a really good player?
Well, I mean, like I think my whole take on this is that they have so many
Yeah.
spots at this roster where they need help. Where if they feel like they can find somebody who they can buy low on and maybe get some really good production out of. Like I think like the Willie Gay signing last year, right? I think that was a pretty good roll of the dice, like $5 million on a guy with good traits who's been a good player in the NFL. Obviously, like the role didn't pan out for him last year here, but like that's kind of the sort of signings I'd expect them to make. And if I'm looking at this team, I think one of the sneaky needs that I don't think they can just like count on the draft to address is corner. Um, it's been a really solid area depth-wise within the last couple of years, but you look at who they have under contract right now, it's Alontae Taylor and Kool-Aid McKinstry and not much else. It's something that I think they're going to need a lot of help at. So that'd be, I don't think there's a corner that you can look at in this draft and be like, yeah, we want to take him at number 9, like a surefire, like top 10 lock type of player. I think it's a little bit more deep in the like the pass rushers, offensive linemen in this draft. So like if that to me is like an area you can address in free agency, and maybe like one of those kind of like the bendy, undersized edge rushers that they've never had on this team under Dennis Allen. Maybe you can find one of those in free agency that can help you out. But again, they're going to be limited with what they can do. Even though they want to be more aggressive, they just aren't going to have the space to make a big splash signing.
Do you think that Paulson Adebo's injury makes it more likely that the Saints could re-sign him?
No, I don't actually. I think he's like pretty well recovered from that. From what I gather at the combine, it was an injury that was a terrible injury and ended the season, but it's not like something that requires this big long rehab to come back from. It's just kind of a clean break, and he's healthy now. And the fact is that you don't really see 25-year-old corners who have a good history of production at the NFL level reach free agency very often. Like he's going to have some suitors, and I think that's going to make him tough for the Saints to bring back.
That's fascinating. Tyrann Mathieu is a guy that was potentially reported that the Saints could move on from. Do you expect him back?
I do. I just think it's the conversation's the same with Tyrann as it is with Demario Davis and Cam Jordan and Taysom Hill. It's like moving on from these guys is not really going to get you much in terms of flexibility. So, like, really, if you move on from them, it's just because you don't want them on your team anymore. And I think Tyrann's still a good enough player to where, if you're going to be paying the $9 million in cap charges, regardless whether he's on your team or not, you might as well just keep him there because he's still good, and he's also just like an important person to have in the locker room. So I'd be surprised by Tyrann. I think there's a chance that they could try to approach like Cam or Taysom on a pay cut. I don't know if they'd be open to that. But like Tyrann took a pay cut last year, Demario took a pay cut last year. I'd be really surprised if they got them to do that again. So I think that to me is pointing toward Tyrann being back. But we'll see. We'll see what this whole staff thinks of these players as players. Like if they move on from them, it means they don't think they're good enough players to be on the roster anymore.
What do you think about Chase Young's market on the free agency scape?
I think it'll be a little bit better than last year because I think he put some of the health concerns behind him. I think that was really the main thing working against him last year. He's not like the superstar player that everybody thought he was going to be when he came into the NFL, but I think he's still a good player, and he's still really young. He's only like 25 or 26 years old. So there's going to be interest in him, and I think he'll get like a multi-year contract. It just won't be like the $25-30 million deal like everybody was anticipating he'd sign eventually when he was like the defensive rookie of the year. I think it'll be probably closer to what he made for the Saints last year, somewhere in the $13 to $15 million range, but like more than 1 year on it because he's shown he can be healthy.
Quarterback's the last question I'll ask you. Derek Carr is the big headline here, but do you feel like there's a pretty good chance that they go to week 1 next year with Derek Carr, Spencer Rattler, and Jake Haener and nobody else?
I think they might add a veteran backup, but like I don't think it'd be like a name. I think they'd probably feel pretty comfortable with Rattler as the 2, and I don't really see the point in going out and adding somebody like let's just say Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
If you already feel comfortable in your 2, and most teams don't even carry 3 quarterbacks active on the game day roster. I guess it would depend on what Kellen Moore's thought about the whole thing is. Like, do you want to be in a situation like they were in last year where your starting quarterback gets hurt and then you're just basically just like tanked for the rest of the year? Like, do they feel confident enough in Rattler to go win games as opposed to just like developing on the field? I think that's the only way they bring in like a veteran to be like the true backup while they develop. But I think I would lean more toward just keeping Rattler and Hayner as a 2 and the 3.
News never stops on the NFL level. You're looking for your Saints news. No better spot than Luke Johnson with The Advocate at by Luke Johnson. He's with us on Thursdays. Appreciate your time, man.
Appreciate it, buddy. See you.
We will. We'll see him very soon. I mean, look, it's an interesting time I'm less interested, quite frankly, and we'll talk about it as it happens. I'm less interested in the actual players the Saints bring in one by one. I'm more interested in what the plan looks like, because we don't really know right this second what the entrance to this Kellen Moore era is going to look like. I think most people I've talked to that are fans of the Saints want the Saints to pull back and try to get into a little bit more advantageous salary cap situation, but the Saints aren't willing to do that more often than not. It looked like entering the last season when they only signed a couple of guys to one-year deals, kept things like Willie Gay, 1-year deal, Chase Young, 1-year deal, just kind of keeping things between the buoys, not doing anything crazy. But you restructure Derek Carr and kick $70 million down the curve, and then you start adding guys that are 30 years old to your roster for big money. Like, I start converting bonuses and stuff. Like, all of a sudden, I'm going to sour pretty quick. It's like that just feels to me like continuing to swim upstream. Now, if they continue to go out and sign guys on 1-year deals and they let some of these contracts come off the books and they don't do anything drastic with Carr, so you've got an off-ramp with him and you feel like you might be closer to the full reset where you can finally breathe, that will be encouraging. I realize that's not a lot of fun as a fan to sit through, but if you're trying to get back to a championship level, it feels like you got to change the way you're doing things. And that, to me, is the story into this now roster composition portion of the offseason. Do the Saints take a different path? And I'm curious to see whether or not they do that. So, hey, it's Hunt. Thanks for watching Hunt on Saints. Before you leave, help us out a little bit. Hit that like button, leave your comments in the section below, and hit that subscribe button so you get all our content right here from Hunt on Saints. We'll see you next time.